Good evening, everybody. My name is Jenny Wyman, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's program. I would very pleased to introduce this evening's speaker, Darrick Terry from Urbana's Landfill Recycling Center. Darrick operates the LRC booth where he screens the yard waste customers deliver to the center and determines the charge for dumping them. He also sells the compost, mulch, and other landscape products the LRC offers. He very capably helps customers choose the right products for their needs since he's an avid gardener himself, growing cherry tomatoes each summer for customers to enjoy right in front of the LRC booth. Darrick is also an expert able to give advice on slow and low barbecuing. And I'd like for everybody to welcome Darrick. Thanks.
Hello. I guess like she said, my name is Darrick Terry. I'm the specialist at the Landscape Recycle Center. At the booth when you come in, I'm the first person you see. And let me go ahead and get started. Let's see here. Try it. There we go. Yeah, so this is anybody who hasn't been to the Landscape Recycle Center. This is the first sign that you're at the right place. It's kind of hard to find. We're off back behind Flexing Gate and Guardian West. To get to our facilities, you have to turn off at this sign and then head all the way to the back. Just stay on that road. It seems kind of weird where you're going, but once you get there, it's very noticeable. So first of all, the LRC, about the LRC, it was started as a cooperation between the Champaign and Urbana, self-funded through the fees and the sales of the material. It was started back in 1976. They actually closed the landfill here in town, and they come to find out that it was getting to the point to where this the state of Illinois, actually all the landfills were becoming too full. They looked at it and saw that about 60% of that material was yard waste, and they figured if they could divert that material from the landfill, it would save the landfills, and then at least make it last longer. So what they did was they came up with the Yard Waste Reclamation Site, which was the original name of the LRC. When in 1987, it was open to the public, where people could come in and drop off material, and that way they could divert it from the landfills. The LRC is not subsidized by the city of Urbana, so like I said, all the money generated at the LRC comes from the disposal fees and the sales of material, which is what allows the LRC to be non-tax. So there's no taxes on the sales, there's no taxes on the purchase of anything at the LRC. Now, what can you drop off at the LRC? And the fees. A lot of people ask these questions. You can find all this information on the website. At landscaperecyclecenter.org. We just updated the website. It's very user-friendly. It's actually mobile-friendly now. It's very, very bright and vibrant. It's easy to flow through, find your information, and give us a call or visit the site to see what you're looking at. And so the fees for dropping stuff off are you can drop stuff off in bags or you can drop stuff off loose. The bag material, like if it's $5 for 1 to 2 of the leaf recycle bags, $10 for 7 to 9 bags. And if you have more than 9 bags, we actually go out and measure it like we do loose material. We'll measure the amount of material you have and charge the loose material is $10 a cubic yard. Now, if you have something that's like if you're cutting down a tree and you have pieces that's larger than 10 inches in diameter and roundness, they must be cut to 3 feet in length. And those pieces are actually charged at $18 a cubic yard because they're a lot more material to deal with. So it's a higher fee for that material. Now, if you look off to the side, you'll see the unaccepted material. A lot of people do use a lot of this material for their composting, but for our process and the EPA regulations that we have to follow, we can't take any of this material. And it's advised that you try not to have this material even off to the side when you come, because a lot of times if you can't separate it, the attendant will turn you away, and you would have to go get rid of that material before you can drop off the material you're trying to drop off. Okay, so now here's the stuff that we do take. I was trying to get to this part. There's a lot of people have called about this and asked a lot of questions about this. So I got this split up into 3 categories, but then I also have it split up on into 4 sections, and you'll see why later. So you got the non-woody material, which is leaves, grass, flowers, vegetables, garden vegetables, and vegetable garden fruit. A lot of people ask, why don't we take table scraps? Table scraps is not considered something we can take because a lot of times it's processed food that gets mixed in, and a lot of times the wrappers get mixed into it. And that's why you don't see table vegetables like, banana wrappers and stuff like that. I mean, bananas and stuff like that, because for our process, we needed to process in less than a 3-year process. Next, you see the soils. Soils is stump grindings when you cut down a tree and they grind up the bottom that's underneath the soil and they scoop all that up. That's called stump grinding. It's the dirt and the wood chips mixed in together. The sod potting soil and old mulch. We'll take all that and that goes to one area in the back of the site where we let it sit, let any material or any kind of pesticides that's in it leach out. It's processed through sitting and a decomposer type thing, and it sits in the back, and then we screen it out, and then it sits for a little bit longer at roughly pretty high temp. It's not as high as the mulch, but it sits at a high temp so that any weed seeds and stuff like that are burned out. And then you'll see the woody material. That's your tree trimmers, your tree limbs, your brush trimmers, and fruit trees that you no longer want, basically. Then, so now with the woody materials, you see there's 2 types of woody material. You have the smaller, thin, 8-inch or less, and then the larger than 8 inches. This material is where a lot of people get confused. So anything smaller than 8 inches is the tree trimmers, limbs, and brushes. But then if it's larger, you got just large tree limbs and tree stumps. Those 2 materials need to be separated. It is very important that you separate those materials before you come to the LRC. A lot of people tend to be working and they don't think about it, but those 2 materials need to be separated before you bring them to the LRC. That's why the 4 categories are there, because each one of these categories need to be separated, and they need to be separated because each one has its own place that it goes. The next question we get the most by far is, what is a cubic yard? Technically, a cubic yard is just 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. And if you see in the diagram, it's just if you take a cube and you got 3 cubes one direction, 3 cubes another direction, 3 cubes another direction, times 3, that's a cubic yard. Well, if you take one of those squares out, that's a cubic foot. It takes 27 cubic feet to make 1 cubic yard. That's the best explanation I can make. If you see like the truck there, this is just a diagram on there though. But that truck, if you were to measure the material, it would come out to maybe a yard and a half, because there's something on the back, like a toolbox or something. But if you see in the little drawing down there how it breaks down the sections into the back of the truck, that's how we measure the load, is what we call it. It's what you have, not the container. So if you have a 16-foot trailer, 22-foot trailer, we might measure, it might look like we're measuring the trailer, but we're actually just measuring the load so that we can give you a fair price for what you're trying to drop off. And so for the reason I split those into those categories is because this is why you got the non-woody material, which is leaves, grass, clippings, flowers, and vegetables and fruit. That material is turned into the garden compost. We sell it at 35 gallons, up to 35 gallons per bag container at $6.25, and bulk, which is by the cubic yard, for $32 a cubic yard. A lot of people ask what is a 35-gallon bag container consist of. It's literally whatever you bring that equals up to 35 gallons. We suggest using 7 5-gallon buckets. You know, the buckets you can buy at the store, Walmart, somewhere like that. Sometimes you can catch them on sale for a couple of dollars at, say, I don't know, the hardware store. But it's a little known fact that if you have a restaurant you frequently go to, you might ask one of the waiters or the manager if they have any pickle buckets. Pickle buckets is one thing that a lot of people don't know restaurants use that they have to throw away. And that's one way we can stop a lot of stuff going to the landfill as well. They pretty much throw them away, and you might be able to look out and grab 7 5-gallon buckets. That way you can come out and grit some compost for $6.25. But the garden compost, yeah, what we do is it's a process over 3 years. Is when you drop off your material, your leaves, your bags, your flowers, sometimes even pumpkins at the end of the year, all that kind of stuff makes a pretty good garden compost. What we do is we grind it. Then if you look off the smaller picture is the rows that we have. The rows of garden compost, they're about 20 feet tall. I'm guessing around 100 yards long. We monitor those of the temperature, the moisture, and the oxygen levels. At least we try to do it once a month. We get around to it about once a month. And as needed, we have a loader go through and turn them so that we can keep them at about 120 and 140 degrees so that all the microorganisms can get to working and all the weed seeds can burn out and there can be nothing in there by the time you get it. But that's, like I said, that's a 3-year process. It actually sits in those little rows for a year. And then as over the years, we turn it about 3 to 4 times a year. And then we take all those rows and mount it into one big row. And then it sits for another year. And that's the cool down process is what I refer to it as. As it's in the small piles, those piles heat up real high, real fast. And since they're not covered and they're not, we don't have any way of pouring water into it to monitor, to keep it moist, we have to hope for rain. And then as the rain comes, we turn it based on that to keep the moisture. So is how we process it. But like I said, we group it into one. After a year, we group all the small piles into one big pile, sits for one more year. And then we go through and screen out everything that hasn't broken down into a soil size material. So, and this is the reason why we don't take the kitchen scraps and stuff like that, because the less non-organic material we can get into these piles, the better, because everything that makes it into these piles have to be thrown away. And we have to dispose of it at our feet. And the garden compost, it is tested by the EPA requires us to test it. So we have to send it out to a lab to be tested. And this is the last test that we had. It was in July of 2020. It's annually tested by a lab, but we test it monthly, if that makes any sense. We test the small piles and the big pile that you would get, this material is from the piles from 3 years ago. So if you go out to the LRC right now, this pile that's been tested is the material you're actually getting. Those small piles that you were on the previous screen are the piles for years to come, basically. So that's how it works. It's not a you drop off this year, you're going to get the material from this year. No, it actually sits for quite a while, and we do pretty good monitoring. We try to keep it consistent. We try to keep it clean, and we try not to mix it with any too much dirt, so we don't scrape up stuff like that. So oops, sorry about that. All right, another product we sell is a pulverized topsoil. It's a pretty hot product. I mean, we run out of it about once a year at least. It's because we actually take dirt, soil, and mix it with garden compost. So for every 3 buckets of dirt, we mix in 1 bucket of compost, so that it's easier to grow. It's very, very rich. It's for anything that you want to do. You can use it for your yard. You can use it for your garden. We suggest using it for your yard. It is for leveling or raising the height of your yard, or if you have a bumpy yard, this is what you would put down so that it's not as bumpy, because a lot of people ask, why can't you use garden compost for that purpose, for raising the level or leveling a yard? Is because the garden compost has a settling factor. So when you put down garden compost and it sits, there's no soil. So what it's going to do is going to enrichen the material that it's sitting on top of. And if you think about it, if you're putting garden compost on top of your soil, you're making topsoil. You're not leveling the topsoil you have. You're not raising it. You're just making what you have better. So if you're wanting to raise your soil, you want to use the topsoil blend. And like I said earlier, that you can bring in buckets for $7 and get it, or you can get a truckload, or let's say a cubic yard for $45. I will warn you though that the garden compost or the topsoil is extremely heavy. Comes in around 2,000 pounds per cubic yard. It's the one thing that a lot of people don't take into factor that when they come out and get it. So you want to be very, cautious with planning on getting this material. When you come, we'll tell you how much you can get, but a lot of people has an expectation of getting 2 or 3 yards in one load, and it's just not going to happen. Not in most cases, it's not. This material is made of the soil that this material is pulled from is derived from the old mulch and the soil sod that people bring in, and stump grindings, and that stuff has to sit off in the back for quite some time. It actually sits back there for a good year to 2 years before we can even think about using it, because it has to break down all that mulch, and then the sod has to break down. So and that's one of the reasons we run out of it so much. It's hard for us to get a lot of soil to give out to people. All right. So now we got the mulch that we sell comes from all the tree limbs, tree brush, bushes, and stuff that people bring in. It's all organic. We don't use any kind of rubber mulch. We don't use the dyed mulch that people purchase, and you don't use any of that. We just use straight trees, grind them up, let them sit, and in the morning, and then they're ready to go. And like it says, the temperature is 140. You should, in the morning, you could see the steam coming off the piles from the night before, because they got so hot that sun hits it and just cause that reaction to all that steam comes up. But it's all organic. It's we have right now we have more type than I have on here. It's because we always are trying to be innovative and come up with a new product that some people would want, some people might not. It's just try to be a little different, come up with something everybody, try to please everybody we can. So you got the organic mulches. The premium of the two are the premium shred and the premium chip. They both run you at $25 a cubic yard. The premium shred is more of a pencil shaving, peat moss type material, and then the premium chip is exactly like that, just smaller chips, more uniform, and they tend to have a lighter color than the premium shred because it's just not as ground up. Both materials perfectly used for the same thing. You can use them on shrubs, flower beds, perennials. You can put them in a garden. They're really good for the garden area to retain moisture. You could. A lot of people use them for the shred for the mixture of the soil to loosen it up so that it actually decomposes and turns into I guess kind of like a compost type mix. And currently right now, the premium shed is actually on sale, 50% off until the end of April. So if anybody want to come out there and grab some of that. All right. The standard shred is actually on sale as well. As you can see, it's $5 cheaper, so which makes it $10 a yard if you get it. But the standard shred is more for these. The standard shred and the select chip are more for walkways. A lot of people like them. I mean, you can use it for whatever you like, but because the material is so large, it kind of causes gaps, and weeds tend to finagle their way through. But a lot of people just double the layer because it's a cheaper price, which means you can use it as your shrubs and everything, just like you can the other mulch. It's more for the people. Like I said, we try to find things that please everybody across the whole board. So we're not saying that these material are less as good, just some people like this as opposed to the smaller stuff. But you would see if you come out and you'll see that these two materials are much lighter than the other two, and so it's not ground up like the others. So the others these would be ground up once. The others the premiums are ground up twice. That's the best way to say it. This is just a different material that's larger and it hasn't been ground up as much as the other material, but they're just as good. You can use them for just anything, but we suggest you use these two, the standard shred and the select chip, for walkways. Now, the larger pieces that you bring in, the 8 inches or bigger, those pieces are actually brought in and taken to a separate area all the way in the back. And if they're used for firewood, and you can bring in your own splitter and chainsaw and cut up the pieces to take with you if you want. We have the bulk wood year round in the back. The quarter wood is the wood where we take the bulk wood and we chunk it into 4 sections so that it's more manageable. And they're roughly about a foot in length, a foot in width, and about 3 feet long. You can find some pieces smaller than that. You might find some pieces bigger than that. And like I said, you can bring a chainsaw in, you can bring a log splitter in, load up what you want, and that all that is free. But we also sell split wood during the winter months. Right now we're pretty much out because we're going into spring, so we're pretty much what we have has been picked over. But you can come out and pick up 15 pieces for $7.50, or a rick, which is an 8-foot truck bed full, for $75. We can split that fee up into 1875 for a quarter of a rick, and that basically is just you take an 8-foot bed and split it into 4 sections. It's a 2 feet wide, 2 feet tall, and 4 feet long. So it's about the space of a car trunk. So you can fill up a trunk of a car for about 1875. What we add up. And let me also say, with the bulk wood, you would have to come in, and it's pretty much all self-loaded. We try to separate the softwoods like the pine, because we get a lot of pine around here, especially with our cold winters. A lot of pine trees die, the spruces get broken off. So we try to separate them, and that way you don't grab something that's softwood, because what we don't want is somebody who's not familiar with the material grabbing stuff and trying to burn it in their house, and then putting something like a pine logs and they filling a chimney with pine logs. So we suggest you not use our wood to burn inside unless you season it, because all of our wood is unseasoned. And another one, the materials that we have that a lot of people actually come out for is the stable to soil enhancer. There's a lot of people, this is the material that used to be known as the mushroom compost. It's a natural fertilizer. We suggest you not use it on food crops, but as everything we sell, that is our suggestion. That's what we say. If you're familiar with the material, you know how to use it, you know the construct of it, and you can do what you need to make your garden good. Now, this material is just horse manure. It is mixed with hay. It's hay-fed horses, horse manure that has aged over years and years. It sits for so long before we even get to it. That's why it's aged for so long. If you come out and look at it, it's similar to the garden compost in structure, but you'll see that it's different. It has a stronger smell to it, but it is much, much higher than nitrogen, and much higher. You can use it to enhance this is the material you want to use to enhance your soil you had. We suggest using it in, say, the fall. You want to put it over your garden beds, the soil in your garden. You can put it in your grass, as long as it's not not the summer. You want to do it in the fall, because it's so the nitrogen is so hot. We call it's so nitrogen based that it's been known to turn grass yellow, because it's just extremely, extremely, extremely strong. You don't want to grow food crops in it, is what we suggest you not grow food crops in it, because of that reason, and because of the fact that it is horse manure mixed with hay, and it's just decomposed and stuff like that. But it is extremely good material to use, and it's something you might try. Grab you a few buckets and see, read up on it and see how to use it. We can help you out there, explain how to use it at the LRC as well. And the red granite is one of the things that a lot of people come out and we just don't have. It's a material we get shipped in. It's a great material for walkways. You can shovel it into a bucket, or you can get a truckload of it. But what happens, the way it works is you just pour it out and tap it down with a tamper, or stamp it down, and over time, it actually becomes a hard surface, like almost like a concrete type material. It becomes super hard. You can see this material at I think Lincoln Square has some on the east side of Lincoln Square, and they're sitting areas if you want to see what it looks like and after it's been used. It's a great material. It's a little high, but it is a great material for walkways and patios. You can use it to line your driveways, just, as aesthetic purposes or anything like that. It is a decomposed granite that we ship in from excavating in, I want to say, Michigan. It's the remnants of the red bricks that, when you purchase a red brick out of a store, that the chippings of that is this material. They're just repurposing material so that it just stays out of landfill is pretty much what the LRC tries to do all the time. Okay. So I kind of went through it pretty quick. Most of like I said, all this material information is on the Landscape Recycle Center website. It's super easy to read, super easy to follow through. You can click around, read around. If you got any questions, you can always call the ask at the LRC or hit us up on the comment section on our website. We try to answer everybody in a timely fashion. It's just right now because the spring is kind of hard. I know a lot of people are calling us, and we try to answer the phone, but there's only one attendant. So we try to get to you. Just don't get discouraged that we're not paying attention to it. We are paying attention. It's just a busy time of the year for us. And that is all I have.
Darrick, we do have one question, and the question is, do you ever have other colors of the decomposed granite?
So we did try orange decomposed granite. It was a little bit cheaper, but the company we got it from stopped selling it. So once we ran out of it, there was nothing we could do to get more of it. I will say though that the red decomposed granite we have now, because it is coming out of excavation from the earth, the ground, it will never be the same color every time. It might be a shade different each time. It's the same material, but it might be a shade different each time. So if you came out before and it was darker red, it's a little lighter this time, that's kind of why. But yeah, as of now, to my knowledge, I've only seen the red granite come in red.
Okay, I got another question for you. Are there other communities also recycling their yard waste like you guys do?
It's kind of funny. So when I first got hired, I actually looked into that because when I got hired, I didn't have a clue. I had to study up and learn a whole bunch of stuff about how this process worked. But there's actually a lot of communities. There's Springfield does it. They have a really, really good one. I'm pretty impressed with Davenport. Davenport has a really, really good setup out there. There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of communities that do it. Like Danville has a similar process, as a similar thing going on as us. But we won't find any of them doing it at a level of where we're not being subsidized by the city or the county. We are all the ones that I've researched or went out to look at are individual company that does it for themselves, helping the community, or and then you got the cities that do it to help the people of that city. Where we're city governed, but we're actually funded by the community. So it's yes, there is other communities doing it, but there's none doing it to where we rely on the community, and the community rely on us. Without the community, we won't exist. And so I haven't found anyone that do it like we do it though.
Okay, I got another one for you. Based on COVID, do you ever require appointments, especially on Saturdays?
No. So we actually revamped the whole process. So before, it was extremely like personal out there. You could come out, we'd shake your hand, we'd get real close to you, sit down, talk to you, all that. And you know, that's before COVID. Now we still have the camaraderie with the customer. It's just now we only take credit card and debit. We also take Android Pay, Apple Pay, and Samsung Pay. We just can't take cash and checks like we did before. Um, we used to let people come in and sit down and fill out a form to fill out a delivery. Now the delivery forms are all online and it's submitted through email, and there's no reason you don't have to come out to the site to do it no more. We're just trying to reduce the amount of people that's in the site, even though it's outside. It's still a lot of processes where people can come into contact with each other. So that's about the only thing that pretty much changed is the credit card and the process up front where you bring in. Everything else is pretty much the same because it's a big area. Everybody has enough room to separate and unload everything they need.
Great information. And I also got another one for you. Why did they change the name of mushroom compost to stable soil enhancer?
It was, to my knowledge, it was because it was a confusing name for a lot of people. The I guess there is a actual mushroom compost that is actually mushroom compost. It's meant for mushrooms. There's a compost that's meant for mushrooms, and then there's the horse manure compost that grows mushrooms, and that's where the name, to my knowledge, that's where the name derived from. The compost could grow mushrooms, and our industry, hay-fed horse manure was known as mushroom compost just as a general, so that was a special category. Well, I guess over time, the people in charge figured that it was more confusing to say this is mushroom compost, and then somebody come out and be like, well, no, this is not mushroom compost. The purpose is to enhance the ground, so just call it soil enhanced. And I guess that's where the name derived from. To my knowledge, I'm not 100% on that, but that's, to my knowledge, that's what it was. That's the reason for the change.
Okay, well, this next one is a two-parter. It says, number one, for many years until last year, for compost, you also had a flat rate about $20 or so for the season before going to the current fee of 35 gallons. Would you please bring that back? And like mulch, do you ever have a reduced costs for compost?
So, so the what you're referring to is the bucket program, and the bucket program was created, to my knowledge, just before I was there. But the bucket program was created to introduce people to the use of compost if you don't have a car. So what they did was they made it so people could pay to get 6 loads at one time. The problem was if we increased the price increase, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the price of the bucket program increased. So what you actually were doing were, instead of coming out each time and paying each time, you prepaid for 6 loads. You prepaid for 5 loads, and then there was last the 6th load was kind of a freebie because you paid in the front. Well, what happened was, I don't know if a lot of people didn't know, a lot of people didn't know, but last year we almost ran out of compost, and we literally got down to the point where we could only sell, people up to 2 yards of compost. And because the amount of compost we have coming, the amount of leaf material coming in is slowly falling off. It's reducing the amount of compost we have to sell, and that program ended up causing more confusion for a lot of people because they didn't understand that you couldn't just come out as often as you wanted. You only could come out 6 times, and that was becoming more of a redundancy than to a person just coming out and just paying each time. And so that's why that went away, because you're, instead of paying once and coming out 6 times with the credit card, now you can just pay each time you come out and get roughly the same amount. You'd probably be a bucket or two off, but you're getting about the same amount you would have if you paid the what's the name. And you said there was a second question. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's like mulch. Do you ever have a reduced cost for the compost?
So I have never heard of the reduced price on the compost. In the past, I want to say we did have what was that? No, I guess that was on mulch. I don't think we ever had a reduced price in compost because, like I said, it's the compost is a material that's derived on the amount of bag leaves we get, and with the reduction in bag leaves we've been receiving over the year, we just don't have enough compost to put it on sale, and that's why you haven't seen it on sale until we get an overabundance of garden compost. That you probably won't see a sale.
Okay, thank you. And we've got another one here. Where do you get your horse manure for the compost?
Majority of the horse manure comes from I want to say the fairgrounds. Yeah, we go get it from the fairgrounds. You probably don't never notice it. You see trucks coming and going if you're out there all the time. A lot of time, not a lot of times, but okay, I don't know how often we go. I don't keep track of it, but about a couple of times a year we'll go over there and almost try and clean out their sales pretty much. Get as much as we can to work with them. Bring it out to the LRC and let it sit off in the back and decompose over time, and then we screen it. But yeah, majority of it comes from from the fairgrounds over there with the horses in Urbana.
Okay, Darrick, I think that's the end of the questions, and I just want to thank you so much for teaching us all about the Landscaping Recycle Center.